Maintenant que nous avons situé la méthode,
Now that we have clearly identified the interview or survey method with regard to other methods, we must now distinguish between the different types of interview or surveys. As you see, I use the word interview or survey, and they can each substitute each other. However, interviews and surveys can be of different types, and this is what we will be looking at according to a gradient of structure. An open interview, a semi-structured interview, a closed interview. This is what I call the gradient of structure. So according to this gradient of increasing structure, we will schematically distinguish between three main types of interview. The open interview, and when I say interview, you can understand survey. An open survey, an open interview. So I resume the gradient. Open interview, semi-structured interview. So, semi-structured interview or survey. And the third point, closed interview. We can see this gradient in the table proposed by Giglion and Matalon in their publication of 78. The open interview, semi-structured and closed interview, which correspond to phases of research which will be different, which go from the top to the most exploratory to control, exploration, going more in-depth, verification. When we will be at the top, on the left-hand side of the table, we're at the beginning of our research. And when we slide towards the bottom right-hand corner of the table, we are coming to the end of our research. So we're moving from exploration to exploring more in depth and control, the control of what we have found. With regard to the control, in other situations, in an administered situation where we give funds for agricultural policy, for example, the people responsible for this control will have a type of interview with the stakeholders, with the farmers, that will be specific to their mission. They will ask precise questions, closed questions, in order to control what the farmers have done. In our case, the control is of a different type. It will be a control of the data that we have collected in a prior period, during exploration and more in-depth exploration. So after having determined the three major types of interviews with regard to your different research phases, I would now like to characterize these according to type. The open interview or free interview takes place in the exploration phase, as we saw. And this indicates the themes of the interview in a very open way. And the purpose is to understand the main outlines of the context and how the individual that you are surveying or the group that you are surveying situates themselves with regard to this context. The semi-structured interview that we saw in the exploration and in-depth exploration phase is based on an interview guide that is carefully prepared and which identifies the different themes that must be approached. The order in which we may consider these themes may vary. The surveyor must make sure that all of the themes planned are indeed approached. Depending on how the interview runs, the surveyor will intervene to direct the person being interviewed towards the themes they wish to address. The third type of interview, the closed interview, and we might also call this a standardized interview, is more set. The questions are more precise, generally speaking, and the expected responses are shorter, or even very short. As we saw, this intervenes when we are in a phase of verification or control, meaning that we have attained a certain amount of knowledge of the subject, and we are using this knowledge. We come back to this knowledge to build questions which are very precise, as I said. Another point regarding the type of interview is the type of question that we ask to the person we're interviewing. We will move from interviews that will include open questions, which call for longer answers from the person being interviewed, towards closed questions, which call for relatively short answers on behalf of the person being interviewed. And of course, between the two, there will be a continuum with a mix of the two types of question. So, to sum things up, we must remember that amongst the four methods in human sciences, observation, survey or interview, experimentation, study of written documents, here we are looking at the survey interview. And within this chapter, amongst the three possible types of interview, open or semi-structured or closed interviews, we will be looking at the second, the semi-structured interview.